come swinging.
So
Well,
maybe I should remove Save Our Sites. What do you think?
well, it's already recording, but go ahead.
Or you can say save the peoples.
Yeah, get saved would be a more
Get
appropriate one.
saved. There we go.
Well, where did we leave off, Joey? So, I guess a brief summary of
Okay, I'm
like
ready to go.
we'll have the link underneath for the last discussion. It seemed to have done well for us, which is,
Yeah.
not saying much these days. This is a struggling channel, but we appreciate you coming on and joining us humble people. We got some comments, we did some shorts, I generally take the view, first of all, we're all three are Christians, just to different degrees of Christianity, I guess. I would be the least of the three.
Hmm.
Not practicing, but I mean, you can debate. I do. I pray,
I was just
and
gonna say, I don't know if I
yeah,
would say
yeah.
non-pra. I mean, you said you pray.
I guess where it falls off with me is believe there are other possibilities than just Christ, and I don't necessarily follow those because it wasn't part of my culture.
Hmm.
But I think culture has a huge role in influencing
Hmm.
everyone's religion.
I do
And
too.
I know that
We did
I
talk about this last time, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I can't say I know because I don't know, but I would
No
put
one,
my
but wait, wait,
money.
wait. No one knows.
Well, you don't even know what I'm gonna say.
It doesn't matter. No one knows what the
Okay.
correct religion is.
I would
Oh,
disagree with that.
There's no
correct.
way you can know.
Well, get right into it
I would
then.
disagree with that.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the proof?
Do we want to go? So I'm
I'll just
happy to
sip my
go on this.
kombucha.
Yeah.
Do you
Yes.
want me to go through, give me some background of stuff like to further my argument a little bit, just
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
icebreaker? Okay, so myths. This is where we ended last time. Myths. Christianity is a myth in the sense like all religions are, where mythology and stories, which you can argue the biblical ones are actually true. I would say maybe most of them, but because the Bible is the first text that's like unique in the sense of historical and spiritual, the other ones really more spiritual. But the Bible was the first one I think that combined both, which is why it was so successful. Christianity, I'm speaking. But there's myths across many religions that are very similar to Christianity. Whatever Earth's magnetic poles flipped and the Ice Age and the dinosaurs, there were Sumerians, right? And they had a flood story. Same thing with the Hindus. They had a virgin birth story. Same thing with the Hindus. They had a death and resurrection story. And they had like a trinity or something similar. The creator, the preserver, the destroyer was in Hindu. In Sumerian, it was the sky god, the god of the air and storms, and the god of water and wisdom. And then they all share, like these three, Christianity, Hindu, and Sumerian beliefs, share the apocalypse and final judgment. So Christianity is just the modern version of those stories. And
Hmm.
there's an integrated part to it of having because those other stories didn't have a real people. You can't prove they were real, right? In the Christianity, you can prove Jesus was real. So
Hmm.
100%.
that's the difference. But the stories, like, there's nothing saying Jesus couldn't have been alive, yet not actually, and this is where I probably disagree from you guys, not actually have risen in a physical sense, right? He could have been moved, the body could have been moved somewhere else, stolen. But the myths, you cannot deny the myths and the parallels from the ancient Sumerians, Hinduism, which is way older than Christianity, and Christianity itself. Where the Bible differs is the historical component as well, probably because it's a more recent religion, way more recent than Sumerian and Hinduism
Well,
combined. But there's elements from every religion that I think are good. They provide a framework and a value system and a way for humans to conduct themselves morally, which I think is important for people to have. Otherwise, they have to rely on themselves and everyone's flawed. And so you've got to have either work on establishing your own personal framework that works for you as far as being virtuous and righteous, like Stoicism kind of, which Stoicism was born around the same time as Jesus. Stoicism basically was created by Seneca, Epictetus, people right before him that were born right around the same time as Jesus, and it lasted about 400 years. I mean, it's still lasting today, but it was very popular for about a 600-year period, whereas Christianity is popular for a 2,000-year period post
So
Christ's birth.
I do have a question, because I don't know the answer to it, Dan, but maybe you do. So you're citing Hindu and Sumerian as the oldest religions, but I believe Abrahamic religions are older, no?
No, the Sumerian civilization was here way before anyone else. And this is where
Well,
you're gonna get arguments. Well, Adam and Eve. Well, why couldn't
Right.
Adam and Eve have been after the Sumerians were wiped out? Why couldn't have just started from when a new
Do we know
civilization
that?
started? We don't know that.
well, my
Christians
Or
tend to
who
debate
says that they were here before?
archaeology.
Says
Like
that
they're
that
able to date,
religion
they have fossil
was
records and yeah, and
well,
this is where Christians a lot of times debate
for sure.
science until it's not possible to debate science anymore. And then they say, well, it's up to faith at this point.
yeah, that's
And
where there's no proof of these things, any
there's
Well,
of
that
them.
proof of the
well
Sumerian
even
text and the Hindu.
No, no, no. What I
I don't
mean
think you
though
can
is
have
from
scientific fact about that though.
there's no proof the Sumerians
There's
were their
evidence
religion was established before the Abrahamic religion. Adam and Eve were here before or after. There's no proof of these
Right,
things.
because there's no proof that Adam and Eve even existed.
Exactly.
right.
So
There's no
then, then,
scientific
so then,
evidence.
so then
Yeah.
the Bible is also unprovable, just like these other texts, essentially, scientifically. You just said it, right?
Right. Well, and that's where my concern with all religions boils down to a degree.
Yeah.
Politics at this point are a religion. I don't think anyone would
Oh,
disagree with that.
science is a religion, scientism.
Sure.
Thou shalt
Yeah.
not say go against Fauci
But
or the
Right.
NIH. That's
certainly,
Yeah.
horrible.
that's more
Define what a
but
woman is.
that's more political, right? That's more
Of
political.
course, yeah.
Um, and that's where I would argue that religion can be for that use, right? And in certain degrees, it certainly is. I mean, there's no denying Christianity, Islam, all of them have been used for political reasons.
They're
Um,
weapons. Is religion a technology, do you think?
Technology, no.
In the sense that they could be
So
used to improve lives or achieve certain outcomes for groups of people,
I
similar to
w-
technology.
I think it's the same reason politics exists. It's for control.
But politics is a technology, if you really break it down.
Well, define technology,
Well, let's look it up right now.
because I don't think it is, but I could be
but we,
wrong.
we should pick up where we left off. Because I think we're all how we picked up where we left off is it's going to go into all this stuff. And I think
That branch of knowledge dealing with engineering or applied sciences. You can argue that it's because of a social science that
Yeah, it's a thin argument. I don't
yeah.
disagree, but that's a thin argument.
just saying, do
Sure.
governments use it to their benefit?
Well, what would be the purpose? And I'm sorry, I agree with you, Joy, but I am curious now that we're down
That's
this
fine.
avenue. What would be, because I've thought about this a great deal, what would be the benefit specifically in terms of Christianity to make it up in order to add control to a civilization? Or better yet, the Abrahamic
Well, that would
religion.
be any religion that I mean, that's what atheists think, right? Any religion is made up for control or
But
for
why?
people to feel
What
good
for what purpose?
Well, I think Voltaire said it
for
best.
selfish purpose. I mean, I'm not an atheist, so I don't want to argue their argument, but
Well,
I
if you
mean,
assume it's for control, what control
Voltaire
do they
summed it
gain?
up. Voltaire summed it up in one quote. He said, "I don't believe in God, but I'm glad my servants do, so they don't steal from me at
That
night."
still doesn't, yeah, I understand, but from a political perspective, and I understand Voltaire what he's saying, but what I'm saying is, generally speaking, you have to think in a more grand, grand scheme, right? In
Yeah,
terms of, so were people so ruthless they wanted to calm them down?
oh
Is that the
yeah,
governments.
reason the
I
Abrahamic
think it
was?
started
oh
with the
yeah.
nation state, the advent of the nation state. Once they got military power enough to expand further than where they could ride within a day, because this came out of feudalism. Feudalism was I can control like my town. But then horses came out, like people learn how to use technology. They could expand their territories further, and religion became the doctrine that shapes thought, which precedes action. So if you
Okay,
can
so
convince someone of their thoughts, you can actually predict their future actions. It's a very powerful tool.
so what I'm saying though is think of it like, because I don't necessarily agree. I don't disagree, but I don't agree that climate change is man-made, right? I do believe in climate change. I just don't necessarily agree that it's man-made. I don't think there's proof for that.
Right. We had an
Um,
author on too, by the way. That was the interesting one.
right. So in that context, I can certainly see why man would want this control lever out there, right? So again, why would they want the control lever of religion out there? Is
Because a
it just
religion shapes the thoughts
for what
that the
purpose
citizens
though?
have for
Ultimate
control.
purpose. Okay,
For
again, in
control.
what way? Give me an example of control.
If you are a nation state that is trying to expand
Hmm.
and you need your people, if your people believe they are going to hell if they disobey you,
But
right?
that's not what it says in the Bible, other than at least the Christian Bible, other than do not or give Caesar his due or something to that effect. There's no threat of going to hell for disobeying Caesar.
S-
It's just
So
it's
if it wasn't so powerful,
it's
why?
more a fact of don't kill people and treat other people better. It doesn't really go down the government. That's why I'm saying I think
There's an element of
Christianity,
social order, but why was the Vatican so powerful during the Dark Ages?
that's different. That's well beyond the creation of the Abraham Bible. They took,
Sure,
I
sure,
think they
sure.
certainly, like I said, and I am in agreement with you here for sure,
Okay, so
that
you're
it's
talking
been
Old
used.
Testament.
Yeah, I'm going way back. What's the purpose of its creation? Being that it was created, speculation being about 2,000
If
years.
we're going that far back, it's probably has something to do with obedience. If you look at Abraham being told to sacrifice his son, and he almost did. You
So,
can get people to do all kinds of things, including killing their own family, to serve a higher God who's gonna, you yourself last week said you don't never heard back from God. So if people must be like back then they were ashamed, you're at least open about it. People back then were ashamed to say those things. So somebody in charge would say, well, you're not a true religious person or whatever. You don't believe in God if you don't do this. I am ordained by God to tell you to do this. They had temples and stuff too where they would sacrifice.
yeah, of course. But that's not the Abrahamic religion, unless you're
Well, the
talking about
Abrahamic religion
animal,
one,
unless you're talking animal.
animal or Abraham's child that we know of. I
That's
mean,
different, though. That's a little different, right? There was no temples for human sacrifice in the Christian
there was no
religion.
temples for human sacrifice that we know of in in the Old Testament. There was animals, but we have proof that God commanded Abraham to kill his son
Right, as a test,
to
yes.
show his
Yeah.
obedience. So why wouldn't people read that and or write that? Let's go back a step further. Why wouldn't they write that first and say, "Hey, obedience of the masses might not be such a bad thing to have."
Sure, I don't disagree. I'm just there. You have to think what's the purpose
Right. Right.
to have such a well thought out story
Yeah.
to convince people to do what, right?
I
And I
think
always,
to obey. I don't think humans have changed much in the millennia. Like there's technologies and things, but our brains are relatively similar to like I'm sure Abraham struggled with thinking of killing his son, just like
Oh, for
any
sure.
of us
Yeah.
would do it. Like those
oh yeah,
primal
it says so
urges.
in the Bible.
Yeah. So those
Yeah.
primal urges haven't really changed, and I think those are human, what it means to be human. A lot of the things that even the Old Testament talks about, our God is an angry God, so you should do things to please him.
I don't think it says angry, but jealous God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, yeah, it does say that.
That's what I think. It's obedience. And now I'm not
Well, that's certainly
anti-Christian at all,
that's certainly the reason for the climate change agenda and religion,
but
obedience.
we have to like I'm all for
Control.
religions. Yeah, I'm all for religion. I have no issues with people believing what they want to believe as long as they respect others. And I'm just talking regular religion, not science and all that, but just Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism. I mean, if that's your framework and it works for you, like who am I to say that's not okay? Like you should be a Christian. And that's where I deviate from Christianity. That's
Well,
all.
well, so that's where I would argue on a different level in terms of the ultimate design of the religion. So I'm not a expert of any religion, but I do know Christianity much more so than Islam, though I've watched a number of videos and read a few things. It does seem that the Christian religion is more forgiving and more about loving the individual. Matter of fact, the sermon yesterday was exactly that. Just because you do not know someone, they do not look like you, they do not behave like you still treat them with respect and love.
Yeah.
You don't get that from other religions or
That's a good framework to have.
specifically Islam. That was the sermon yesterday.
Right.
It was actually quite a good one. I know where my pastor lives. He lives like 10 houses from me.
Oh, great.
So I
But that
almost went over
doesn't,
to his house and left a message on the door. Good sermon today.
you made the
Nah,
pod. You made the pod.
exactly.
Which,
What are you doing next Tuesday? Yeah.
but in like the premise, you're right. But if we go back to like the baptism by fire revival era of the late 1700s, like, or even go further to like Salem witch trials. I mean, there's a lot of parallels to modern
Mm,
day of people being ostracized, excommunicated for
but that's
not
yeah, but that's
following.
aside from what it says in the Bible, right? Whereas it
Right, right,
does,
but it's just the potential for abuse because humans are
certainly,
controlling the religion,
certainly, certainly.
right?
I'm just specifically speaking of the doctrine of the Bible,
Uh,
right? The individual
Word
Bibles.
by word for sure. Okay, I understand. Yeah. But all religions have the potential for abuse.
Oh,
I don't
absolutely.
know a case of Buddhism. Yes, I take it back. There's been cults around Buddhism where they use Buddhist principles and get people in cults and stuff. So all of them have the potential for
Oh,
abuse.
sure.
Yeah.
Misperceiving what it says and how to act.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Needing a
I
human intermediary to tell you what God should be telling you is
exactly.
essentially where this breaks down.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I don't
that's
agree with
that's
that. Yeah.
that's exactly where I fell away from the Catholic faith,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're
where a
That's
priest is
Christian.
necessary.
That's
Yeah, they
Christian.
are,
Yeah.
but
Uh,
there's a middleman.
I actually wouldn't say that.
How would you not? They are absolutely Christian.
This is the best.
What's the define
They're
By the way,
Christianity?
Joey's
they're
looking
they're
dapper
called
as hell
they're
today.
called
Yeah, it's a
But
denomination,
they were
just
the
like
first
Lutheran,
Christians. They were the
just
first
like
Christians.
Baptist. It's a denomination, Joey. You have to define Christianity, just like we define
yeah.
technology, and by
I can do that.
definition, they're Christian.
No.
Okay, please tell me what Christianity, the definition of it is.
Uh if they were Christians, they would not call themselves a Catholic church. Period.
Okay, so Lutherans aren't Christians, Baptists aren't Christians.
Protestants.
Yeah, they're all not Christians. Only non-denominational Christians. You're so far wrong, Joey. I'm not. I don't want to be argumentative, but you're absolutely
But
wrong.
that's what the pod's for. You got
100%.
to argue.
100% wrong. The definition of a Christian is someone who believes in Christ and he died for your
Yeah, they
sins on
believe
the
in the
cross.
resurrection.
That's it. That's it. Died for your sins on the cross. Catholics believe that. Lutherans believe that. Baptists believe that. They're Christians.
I would yes they believe in our Bible, in the Bible. I think my only problem with Catholics is that now I think they have gotten better about this, but you know, what's not Christian is saying that you need somebody else to interpret the Bible because you're too stupid to understand. To me, that's not Christian. That's number one. Number two, I also don't think as Christian is praying to the saints, praying to Mother Mary, praying to Saint Joseph on your back. That's an idol. Okay, I don't I have a big problem with that. Um,
So then you're a Mormon. They do too.
no, I'm not a Mormon. I'm a Christian. Now, I do think yes, I might be too harsh to say that they're not Christian. You know, I might say that I have a little bit of a problem kind of saying that we're like the exact same. Maybe that's probably the better word choice.
That
You
would be.
know,
I agree.
what I would say why we're closer to Baptists and Lutherans is because yeah, I mean they don't, Mother Mary is yes somebody important, but we don't have, statues and stories and pray to her, Baptists don't do that. Baptists don't say that you need
No, I
me in
agree.
order to,
Why I'm no
you know,
longer a
you
Catholic.
you
Agree.
you don't. Also, the third thing, and then I want to go back to where we left off
But
because
but
I this is a good one.
The Hail Mary is not a prayer to Mary. It's like a mantra. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Did you
Like it's
memorize that? Get it, bro.
the first part, yeah, at least
Come
the
on
first
now.
part. Blessed is the
Come
fruit
on.
of thy womb, Jesus. Like it's
I don't
all
know.
about Jesus. It's not about the saints. The saints are supposed to keep you on track
Well,
for the
Well, I would say
ultimate.
if it's all about Jesus, we would not be hearing about the saints. Period.
well,
Mormons do
But if
this.
that's
Mormons saying it's
helpful,
about this story about the Mormon guy and this whole story thing. I just don't.
I'm
Why?
a bit,
Why would you waste time talking about somebody else and have so much emphasis on others when you can go straight to Jesus? Same thing with now I think pastors are important, but like priests, like you have to go to a priest and confess that, huh? You have
yeah.
Jesus. The priest
And
isn't
that I have
Jesus. What
problems with that
have you
too.
read the New Testament? Like what the heck?
I have
So
problems with that too, and I
no, I
think
think I
that
was
is
too
an
harsh with what I
abuse.
said at the beginning.
Probably, but I think that's the just illustrates the abuse potential for the technology, which is religion. Because in the Dark Ages, you would have to go to the priest, make your confession, then they'd let you, say these prayers, and then you're okay. But guess what
Yeah,
they would
but
do? They would
yeah.
accept
well,
bribes from other priests. Hey, you can
Mm.
go,
s-
have sex with this prostitute. We actually have brothels for you. You just gotta pay. It was very corrupt. The Catholic Church back in the Dark Ages was no different than the deep state is today.
so
No
I
different.
I a little bit disagree there. Again, I'm not a defender of Catholicism because I left that a long time ago, but I think it was born of a for a good reason, right? In terms of just people
Sure,
didn't know how to read, right? So they had to have a
sure.
middleman to help them understand what the Bible says. And
I don't agree with that.
of that, they bore out, since you can't read the Bible, we'll interpret for you what your sin or the value of your sin,
Mhm.
where they assigned penance, right? Their penance was the Hail Mary and Our Father. I think that's what it was probably born of. Again, we're well beyond that. Most people are illiterate now. There's no need. But I would speculate, I don't have any proof of
I
this.
mean, people were reading and writing when Jesus was walking the earth. So
Very
I don't
few,
necessarily
very
Yeah,
full.
few.
very few. It was
The
like
only ones
1%,
you're reading
Joey.
from were the ones that wrote, but the
Yeah,
majority were not.
yeah. It
And they
wasn't
had to
until
gather in Bible studies, and things like that for
it was
the
I
relatively
don't.
recent times that people could read as a mass.
Renaissance, which really
I might need to look into that more.
the Renaissance branched away from religion, and Nietzsche said, I know you guys, well, Chris thinks he was crazy. He was crazy, but I think there's a lot of value in what he
Oh, I
said.
like I said in my text, I think a lot of what he says is great. I
Yeah.
agree
Well,
with it.
he said that science pokes so many holes in religion that humans are going to lose their way in a few centuries because they're not going to have something to grab onto. And what is going to happen is nihilism. It's exactly what we're seeing. So there's a benefit to religion, but there's clearly a benefit to being awake as far as being open to other possibilities. And I see a lot of closed-mindedness across zealots of all religions where they don't want to learn the other, they don't want to believe that what the other side thinks is correct, because only they could be correct. That's where I deviate from religion no matter what. And I know your pastor said something different, which is commendable, but like that's historically not been the case. And
Just a quick FYI, it was the 19th century when they assumed the majority of people could read. So before that, it was
Mhm.
less than half of all people could read.
and now we're
And
going the other way where everyone's doing memes and
yeah, and then Catholic religion was established in 590. So it was
So, okay, so where we left off last
1400
time
years.
yeah,
was
where do we
talking
leave
about
off?
evil.
That's
I
right.
was making the
That's right.
point because I think all that what we're talking about, it's going to go into this.
Yeah.
I was making the point that I find it oddly ironic that people have more faith in evil and the devil. I've never heard anybody question, evil before. But then to not, to not go the other way and say that, well, if there is evil in the world, like, I mean, really bad evil, that you would think that that's not just human, just created. Like, I mean, what's happening with, ch sex trafficking children, beheading, not just being meeting, cutting somebody off on the highway, but like really, really, really bad evil. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I would just think, I don't have enough faith to think that that has just, oh, created itself. It was there. Like, I would say a lot of people believe that there is evil and an evil one. And
So what?
so,
So I'm sorry, real quick. We're all three going to disagree on this. I can see. Go ahead, Joey.
and so that's fine. We can
I
disagree.
don't. I think
But
we
I
just
think
all have
if we
different takes.
start, here, I think it might be helpful it might go, it will 100% go into our conversation. But
Yeah, and I don't think
um,
the different takes is disagreeing. I just think it's slicing a different side of the same apple or onion or whatever.
yeah. So yeah, that's the argument I'm taking. I find it ironic people, yeah, believe in evil, believe that there's probably, a devil out there, the evil one, but then question God existence, or that don't have full faith that there is a God. And so I find that really ironic, and I see that a lot. And so to me, like, yeah, if you think that, then there's 100% a God, 100%. I mean, just like how I go too, it's like, dude, how complex our bodies are. Just the body, and not including like the solar system and how everything. But it's like blood is stained within my skin, and I cut it, and then it like heals itself. Like I know we all like women can give birth and make other humans. Like, I mean, that's like if you actually like think of that, that's insane, and to like not like that's just how I go. I guess maybe I'm more optimistic, or I think I'm more pessimistic to think that how could you see it and that this stuff just happened by chance? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, there's a number of religions that do not believe in that are Christian that do not believe in Lucifer or Satan. Judaism does not believe in hell or Lucifer or Satan. Um, I don't think,
Judaism? I don't.
yeah,
Jews? I don't.
yeah, look it up.
Yeah, they don't have a hell. But
Um,
I think it's there's disagreements on what is the source of
Well, hold
evil.
on. Jews don't believe in a evil one. Is that what you're saying?
No, they
no,
That
do.
I
would be
don't.
the
They don't believe in hell. I'm not sure if they believe in Lucifer, but I know a number of Christian religions don't believe in hell
Right.
or Lucifer. So if you
Uh,
read the Old Testament, Joey, which is what Judaism is off of, there is no mention of hell or Lucifer or Satan. There's mention of the snake in the Garden
um
of Eden.
yeah, no, I
So
might disagree with that. I don't
they will
I'm
find the verse
I
where it
will.
mentions
Yeah.
Lucifer or
but
Satan in the
Lucifer
Old Testament.
in the technical sense of he is a fallen angel, maybe there's doubts around that, but the just the premise of good and evil, I think all religions have that duality common to their.
Yeah, but I think Joey's argument is that there is no evil without Lucifer or Satan. I think that's the
No, no,
argument he's
Joey's was
making.
saying the
Period.
way I understand, he's saying,
No, he just said period.
oh,
That's
okay,
his argument.
okay,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
But
Well, the
no,
way
well,
I understood it was
I would
there's
say
no
don't
evil without
compare
a
the
God also.
don't co- let's start with the basics, good and evil, and then
Yeah,
we can go to religion after that. So
yeah,
I'm
because
I'm trying to make
religion
that
answers those questions. Well, religion tries to answer those questions. So
yes,
it's
yeah.
just human
But
morality. It boils down to
I don't
human
know.
morality. Like
Well,
there's good and evil, right? We can argue that.
Well, how about this? Is there is there the devil?
No, not the devil. Is
Answer.
there good or evil?
Well, no, answer that. That's what I'm asking. Is there the devil?
I'm not sure.
We're not sure. I know there's evil.
Wow.
I know there's evil.
I do too.
Wow. So why do you so why do you question? Oh, because you think that that's just a religious term.
So I try to approach including religion with some frame of logic, right? Where I can show this is
Have
true
you seen a
without,
possessed person?
so no.
Okay.
I've seen it in the
So, no.
movies. Um, and I have an
Do you
argument.
believe there are possessed people?
I don't know.
Wait, hold
I
on.
believe
Wow.
I,
I'm more interested in what why is there evil but maybe not a devil? I think there's something there.
That's where I was going.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's me too, but
so, um, are we animals? So this is the logical approach I take to this argument. So I try to think of things outside of religion first. Is there a logical explanation? Then I look at religion. Does it apply here? Right? Because if it doesn't, sometimes I really question the religion. Um, so in this context, I would say, are we all animals? And I would say yes. Then I would say, do animals have a soul? I would say no. And then I would say, are animals evil? And I would say yes. Because if all of their acts in nature, many of them are very evil from a human concept. For example, killing for fun, which many of them do, raping other animals, which many of them do, eating the young of others so they don't have competition, very evil, right? From a human perspective, these are all super evil things. If you could think of this in terms of a human being, you'd be like, okay, don't only lock that person up, but cut them up into 1,000 pieces slowly, right? If they went and ate someone's young, right? So my point is in the animal environment, there is certainly evil without a Satan because they have no soul. So why does this not
Ah,
extrapolate out to other animals, which we humans are? Logically
I think
speaking,
I agree with everything except the animals have a soul.
I don't
I
think they
think they
do.
do.
Well, I don't think they're judged. There's no implication of this in the Bible, at least
Right,
from what I've
right,
read.
right.
Because
From
I've
the
only,
Bible, no, animals are not judged. Animals are sacrificed, if anything. But so
yeah.
are humans.
But
So,
God does say
what you're talking about
he
is
knows every
survival.
animal's name. He knows every animal's name. It does say that in the Bible. So you
Chris,
could
what you
argue.
just described was
good point.
survival, you know,
How
uh,
how how do they describe
like for
survival?
animals surviving. I don't know
No,
if
I
I
did
would,
not. No, I did
yes,
not, Joey. They actually kill for
surviving.
fun. They kill for fun. That's not surviving. They don't eat it. They kill it for fun.
Uh,
Maybe as a signal.
No, no, no,
I
no,
would need
no,
to know, I
no.
would need to have examples of
Orcas
that.
do it. Dolphins do it. Apes do it. Apes are the closest to humans, and they do it. They kill for fun. Don't eat it. They're vegetarians.
Yeah, but we have
Mm.
thousands of different animals. Thousands. I've never heard that argument that most animals just kill for fun.
So when lions take
I
over
don't
our
think so.
pride, they eat the young, all of them.
Okay, all right.
Very evil.
I almost a hundred
I mean, I
percent
don't know
agree
if
with
I
you.
would that might be
From a
survival or the
human
way of it.
perspective, that would be
The
evil. No,
um um
for a human to eat another human because they don't want that competition, or
Yes.
to kill something
I
for
don't
fun.
I mean I don't really look to animals,
But
they
again,
don't reason. They
but
don't reason. Animals don't reason.
okay, I
Okay? They
understand.
don't
But
have a head to reason. What they are they have a brain and they're simple. And I don't think I don't think that's a fair argument at all. Because
dolphins kill
right, they
for
don't
fun. They have an IQ of like 80 in
yeah,
human
but that
terms or
doesn't
something.
necessarily mean that that is just evil without the devil. That
But it
means
is
that
evil if
it's
viewed from a
they
human
don't reason.
constraint.
I mean,
No.
are you surprised that something that doesn't reason does stupid things?
Okay, well, how does reason have any bearing on what's
Or
evil and
what
what's
is
not?
Because
reason? What is
they
reason?
can't think that in
What
No,
is
but
depth
you're
reason?
saying
to
evil does
know
not
their
ex No,
actions.
sorry. You're conflicting your argument because you
No,
said evil does not exist without Satan.
correct.
And I'm proving to you it does exist
No,
without
you're
Satan.
showing
No,
no,
it does
that is
exist,
not
Joey. How
that
is it
is
do
not
how so
a
killing
an
the
argument.
No, it
You're
absolutely is.
using an animal that can't reason
How does
that
reason
might
eat? No, no, no.
because
Now
they
you
can't really
again, you're
think for
conflicting,
themselves.
but
I'm
again, you're
not.
contradicting your argument.
Is
No, I'm
reason
not.
consciousness?
I'm telling you.
What is
No, that's
I'm
a
reason?
telling you what I'm saying.
contradiction. You're saying evil only
No.
exists because of Satan. Now you're adding a
Ah.
constraint to that. You have to reason. No, that's not what you
What
said.
Joey's are
No,
getting at,
animals it's an animal. That's not a human.
what
Again,
Joey's getting at is there's a moral framework somewhere that we
hmm
cannot describe. You're debating, well, Joey's debating if it applies to animals because they don't have consciousness or I would argue they do have
They
consciousness, and I
they
do
can't
think
talk.
animals know. That doesn't mean anything.
Chris,
We're
what
not
I'm
going to be able
saying,
to talk at some point.
Chris,
We're going to have neural chips in us and talk to you like
yeah, well,
without.
and at some age we can't talk. That is true. And
No, no,
at
but like
a
if you
early
implant a
age we
chip,
can't talk.
if you
That is
implant a
true.
chip with each other, like we can actually communicate now via technology. But there's something there behind the mode of communication that's consciousness. And if animals don't know the difference between good and evil, which I actually think they do,
Yeah, see, I don't think they do, but I don't think that's relevant to the conversation
It
per
yeah,
it
se.
maybe it's
is.
not.
It
Well,
is.
Joey
That's
says
what
it
I'm
is.
saying,
That's
Chris.
what he said.
I'm saying that it's I don't think it's a fair example to use something that we barely have anything in common with, animals, to
No,
give me
that's not true.
Chris,
Orangutans are
Let
2% difference
Chris, let me finish.
genetically. Okay.
Because I'm trying to say what I'm trying to say. I think it's a not it's not a good example to use an animal that can't think, that they're not a human. We don't have that much in common with them. They don't have a soul. They can't reason. They can reason to about this much, but like that, they don't fully know exactly what they're doing.
This might be a
Fully
better way
know.
to answer the same question. What is good and what is evil? And then we can extract if who's capable of that.
What I would say is, Chris, especially being a Christian, you should talk to a couple of your pastors and see if you could.
There you go, Chris.
Well,
Fuck your pastor.
Let me finish.
Uh,
I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm
ah,
saying is somebody that, depending on the size of your church, likely there's somebody that is possessed with a demon. Go sit in that in the next 6 months. Tell your pastor, hey, is there any like exorcism, or is there anybody? Go sit in that and then come talk to me if there's a devil. That's all. That's what I'll say. Because
but why
I
does it have to
personally
be
have.
the devil though? Because I agree that
So what is
exists.
it?
So what about evil
Just
energy?
evil?
Yeah, what if evil is,
But what is that?
I don't know, energy? It's a spiritual thing. I mean, it
So it's
might
a
be a
spiritual
devil.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm arguing
See,
it's the devil.
I
so I don't,
I I think there's evil. I don't necessarily think that means there's a devil. I'm not in disagreement though. It's
so
possible.
so people do things that better their self, their situation, and a
Mhm.
lot of times those things are evil, right? They do what they want because they believe either there is no hell, right? Or they're atheists, or maybe they do like the mafia, right? In mafia shows, they're always wearing
Mhm.
crosses and praying, but killing people,
But
right?
Catholic.
what is evil? I know we all know it when
Yeah,
we
no, you're
see it,
right.
but what is evil actually? Like, can you define evil and can you define
Well,
good?
that's just it, though. It varies from culture to culture, right?
There you go. So is it a human construct?
It is.
Does it go further than
I
human?
would
Is there
say
anything
no, it is not a human
universal in the
construct.
universe? Does all of good and evil exist in the entire universe? Or is it just on Earth?
I
Wait,
think
say
it's
that again.
I think it's defined by whatever culture or civilization is defining it. Because I'll give you an example. When I lived in Seattle, well, close to Seattle, I remember just
Speaking
before I
of the
moved,
devil.
yeah, right. Just before I moved
The
to
devil. Okay, I believe
California,
in the devil.
just before I moved to California, there was a man who was like 40 something who had immigrated to the States, and he was married to a 12-year-old, which was normal from where he came, but he wound
Right.
up in prison in Seattle because he didn't realize it was against the law to be having sex with a 12-year-old at 45 or whatever he
Damn.
was. So in his culture, not only is it not evil, it's condoned, and I don't know if
So
it's
is that
pushed.
considered evil because
Well, it would be to some,
I
right?
know, but not because of the arbitrary age, which is 16 in some places, 15 in others, 21 in others. What is the evil elements of that scenario? It is someone with
Taking in
perfect
an
reasoning.
innocence, taking in an
Yeah,
innocence.
someone with perfect reasoning manipulating someone with not perfect reasoning. into doing
Sure,
something potentially against their will.
but that's
So we get to
cultural.
this thing called free will,
But
which is
that's
But how
not
did that?
cultural.
My thing is like, so I don't think you can see evil without the devil. So I'll just any evil I think is has an expression from the devil. I do think that human nature. Now, can Christians do evil things? Yes, I do. Um, can we cut somebody off in traffic? Can we like stuff like that? I don't necessarily think that, exa like not I don't necessarily want to say little things, but examples like that means it's the devil. But then I mean, there are severe examples. I mean, like I had said, sex trafficking and of little kids. I mean, just that I would say, like, dang, dude, like you just know, like, man, that is like really, really bad. Oh, my camera just messed up.
So
Hold
I just thought of
on.
something. So is free will a universal
what's
principle?
going on, Joey? You're at an angle there.
I
Yeah,
know.
you're
Give
at
me
an
one
angle.
second. Here, I'll
Is
go. What
is
I'll
free
do
will
is,
a universal principle? Free will.
Is free will
give me one second.
in the
No, is
animal
free will
kingdom
a
or humans?
universal principle?
So again, I'm asking for a more defined. I think it is for all animals. Yes, free will is for all animals, humans
Okay.
and four-legged. Yes, there is
So
free
free
will,
will, do thoughts influence free will?
of course. Also, as well as stereotyping,
What do you
as
mean by
well as
that?
prior experience.
So thoughts precede actions, right?
Hmm.
You can't have an action without thinking about doing it first, even
But I
subconsciously.
don't think all thoughts proceed to action.
All do. I think all do.
No. Well, oh, okay, okay. Let me rephrase that. I don't think every thought leads into an action.
No, it leads to
Okay,
either an
yes, yeah.
action or an inaction. I
Yes.
can have a thought right
Well,
now, I want to kill
yeah.
someone. I'm
Right,
not going to do
exactly.
it.
Right.
That thought led to me not doing it. It's still action. I had to choose not to do it,
I mean, okay. Yeah, okay.
right? We got to agree on
Sure.
something. Okay, so evil is the influence of these thoughts to lead to negative action. And so what influences that thought is something called evil, whether it's and it could be good too. You can have a good influence that shapes your thought to have a good outcome. You can have a bad or evil thought to influence an action. Now, what stimulates that good or evil thought? What comes before that? That's something called from the conscious. That's something that we can't figure out what it is. And cultures try to shape that. This is good, this is bad. And then we start believing that it's bad to not be vaccinated, it's selfish. We all heard that not that long ago. That's not a universal principle. Like, let me get vaccinated because it's altruistic. So humans can shape those thoughts, but collectively, what that is leads us to the spiritual quest of good and evil, God or the devil. And no one can prove what that is because we don't even know what that is ourselves. And does it exist in the universe? Is it oh, it's not a very busy day at the office. There we go.
Joey, you were perfect
Guys,
there for a moment,
I
Joey. What
know. I'm
happened?
having I'm fixing, I swear.
But do you get what I'm getting at? It's like everything is thoughts, where there's way more thoughts in the universe than there are actions.
So I believe Joey's argument would be if it's an evil thought that stems from Satan, right? Um, I don't want to put words. He's busy, so I'm.
But what constitutes an evil thought then?
Well, again, that's cultural, in my opinion, right? So,
What about when
so
an
let's get to
action
let's.
has good and bad consequences as a
But
result?
I got
Was
an
it good or bad?
example. I got an example, right?
Mm.
So abortion, right? One side would argue it's evil to kill a child, right? Or a
Here we
baby
go, baby.
or a zygote, right? As some
Zygote.
refer to, right? Zygote. The other side would argue, so it's evil to kill an innocent baby, right?
Right.
The other side would argue, well, it's evil for you to require a woman to be held hostage to a parasite, essentially,
Right. Right.
right? So both
Yeah.
are arguing evil,
But
right?
different outcomes. Yeah, exactly. You have a dual. I think life boils down. This is where I actually don't disagree with Joey. If there is evil in the world, I do believe in duality. I believe there is a good. If there is an evil, there must be a good because of free will. Now, if we were under no free will, so if we were in a simulation that did not allow free will, which I believe we might be in a simulation that allows for free will, but if we were in a simulation, let's say, that did not allow free will, I don't think there would be good or evil. Wouldn't matter. I think if we are in a simulation, we are in one that allows for free will, and therefore there must be good or bad, because there is no point to have a choice unless there is a duality of polar
Oh,
extremes.
most okay, so I agree. If we're in a simulation, the purpose of the simulation is to see the outcomes on different attributes in terms of application of whatever example that they're looking at,
Hmm.
right? They being the superior being, how does Elon refer to it? The base reality,
Base
right?
reality. Yeah.
They're looking at um what is the outcome of this particular question, right?
Sure.
And they define the simulation or they present it in however similar that they can to their own civilization and culture, to see what
Yeah.
the outcomes are. So certainly there has to be, in that example, there has to be what you're saying, free
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There has to be.
And I think because of I think free will.
But I don't, again, think free will is born. Now, I know in the Bible it says it's born of God, that you're given free
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a pass or fail, right? The way
Yeah.
it's determined whether or not you're going to heaven or hell, is
Right.
you're given free will, and are you worthy to go to heaven?
Hmm.
Again, my argument would be one, there is no mention of Satan or Lucifer in the Old Testament. Now,
Mm.
I've heard the
Just
argument.
the
I'm
snake, right?
I've heard the argument. The reason that is because there were other concerns of God at that time, right? The
hmm.
people weren't ready to know of Satan or Lucifer, and he was not really born or spoken of until the New Testament. So again, I don't know. For that reason, I often wonder. So I have questions like we discussed on our last conversation about has the Bible been corrupted by man? That's my concern, and I think very
Right.
likely hell.
But that's so downstream from this discussion.
I
Like
understand that.
free
I
will.
I
understand
know that's
that.
why we should start with yeah. Wait, so Dan, what do you think about free will? Well,
I
actually,
think free will is
have we
inherently
said
universal.
okay?
Like when you cut out, I was telling Chris, if we were in a simulation where there was no free will, there wouldn't be a need for good or evil because our choices would be irrelevant. But
And
if we are,
that would defeat the purpose of a
that would defeat the
simulation.
purpose. But I believe if we are
Uh-oh,
in a
Chris.
simulation, which I don't know if I fully on board, but I can see it. We must be in one where we have free will, and therefore, because of that, there must be influences from spiritual powers that we do not understand that are good or evil and place good or evil thoughts around us. That voice inside your head that tucks way more than
Okay,
you know is always telling you something either boils
so
down to basically good or evil. And sometimes there is no such thing. There's only degrees of good or evil based on your situation. So that's why this gets complicated. I do see a world where evil exists, but possibly without the devil, although I'm okay saying there is a devil because if there's a God, there must be an equal opposite
why?
to him. I believe
Because
in
that's what the Bible
duality.
says.
Yeah, but see, I
No,
believe it different reasons. I believe in duality. From everything I've seen so far, there must be a
yin and
duality.
yang.
Yin and yang, north and south, east and
Hmm.
west, as is above, so is below.
Seriously.
There's a lot of these characteristics of duality in the universe. I don't think it's just the world. I think it's the universe.
So
I don't know about
Chris,
plants. I don't know about plants yet. I'm pretty convinced about animals because I've seen enough and their actions. They know how to manipulate. They know how to do all kinds of shit. Plants, I'm not sure. Plants are stuck and we can't communicate with plants yet. There are scientists working on ways to communicate with plants through the chemicals they give off, but we're
so
not
that
there yet.
this would be my strongest argument aside from the animal argument on why I don't necessarily believe there is a Lucifer or a Satan is for this reason. So it completely makes sense from a simulation theory that there must be good and bad and free will, right? Completely makes sense because how else do we test our
Right.
theories?
Even lo that's very logical, actually.
Exactly. However, from a religious perspective, again, being that eternity is based on a pass or fail exam, of which you're only tested for at best
Dan,
100
what are you sniffing
years.
there? Sorry.
Sorry, man. Sniffing some Vicks Vapor Rub. I got sinuses.
Sorry.
Why? So if you're a loving God,
Yeah.
right? So I think of myself, and Dan will soon shortly, and I'm sure Joey thinks as well of themselves as a loving parent.
Goo goo
Yeah.
gaga.
W- Is there any reason you would send your child to hell? There's nothing they could do that I would send them to
And
hell.
if God told me
Is
to
a love
sacrifice my son, I'd be like,
well,
hell,
let's
hell
let's
no.
put that aside. If God
So
is a
no,
love,
play this out. Okay.
so
Yeah,
if
play
God
this
is a
out.
loving God, why would A, he even send us to hell for any reason? But B, why would he create an entity to try and help us get to hell, right? So he's a loving God,
I can't answer this.
he's a parent. So why create an okay, and then take it a step further. So you brought being possessed.
Hmm.
So if someone's possessed their whole life,
Hmm.
why should
Well,
they
it's not the
pay
whole
the
life.
or from whatever point on?
But
They're
what if
not
it's
given
It's a no, no,
lifetime
no,
they're
no,
not
no.
given wait,
schizophrenia?
wait, wait. They're not
It's a
given
choice.
no, they're not given free will. No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
They're not given free
100%.
okay,
What
well,
about
there's many
schizophrenia?
there's
There's
many written
schizophrenics.
examples, like for example, The Exorcist, which is supposedly a true story of a 12-year-old becoming possessed. So so if they don't get rid of this entity that's possessed them and ultimately doing evil deeds because of their possession, controlled by a demon, why are they condemned to hell?
Well, it's not 100%. It's not a robot, but that so well, I'll answer in my opinion, I'll answer your first one. In my opinion, the first one that you brought up is free will. I mean, like you're a loving parent, right? You have kids.
So you would send your
And
child to hell?
well, let me expand. There are going to be actions that my sons
Mhm.
might make that goes against my will and puts them in jail. I can't
Certainly,
stop them from doing that.
certainly. That's not what I'm
But
asking.
listen, the
Okay,
choices that they make dictate where they go.
certainly.
Period.
Hmm.
Now,
Period.
taking this period. I'm really big on the period. And I think God's a relational God, and he also gives us free will. And with free will, we have the choice to choose him or to not. I think he's a loving God that allows us to choose him. And
Hmm.
if you don't, then he's allowing you to not choose him and to deny him. And if you do that, you go to hell. Period.
Mm.
Uh, w Damn it, I did that period again. Okay, I'm not
Is
doing that
hell,
anymore.
hold on, can I stop you real quick?
Okay.
So heaven and hell, because I believe in duality, I do believe that's possible. But can it also be a metaphor for perhaps like reincarnation? Like you're gonna reincarnate and have to struggle
No,
eternally until you figure out.
I wish, but no. Well, it's no as far as the Bible's concerned. When you go to hell, you stay there even after Jesus comes
Right,
back,
right. Bible
unfortunately.
aside, can heaven and
Well,
hell exist in the idea of a simulation?
So can I just interject one thing right there where Joy and I are going to disagree again. Joy,
I love
so
this.
you really need to read the Old Testament because in the Old Testament, it specifically says, it does not say you go to hell. It just says you're dead, right? You're ceased to exist. Your spirit is dead. If you, and there's a number of reasons that says you will die in the Bible, in the Old Testament, right? There's literally hundreds, I think.
Were they saying spiritually dead? Like your
Yes,
soul? Essentially your soul.
that's the way I read it. It's not that you
Mhm.
go to hell, you just cease to exist.
So in
I'm
theory, that
fairly
could
certain it talks
argue.
about damned to hell
No, it
and
doesn't,
hell
Joey. It
in the Old
doesn't.
Testament.
No.
And
Well,
even
in
if it
theory,
didn't, I don't think that that changes. What does that have? I don't know what that means. Okay. Um, okay.
well, Chris is saying
Uh,
because in the Old Testament they were not given instructions yet how to live through Christ,
yeah, the New Testament,
that there
yes.
should be no heaven or hell for those people because it would be unfair.
And it says,
You're putting them in a flawed game from the beginning.
and not
There
only
was no
that,
Jesus to believe in.
yep.
Well, I mean, I'm not too
And not only
concerned with
that,
what's fair or not. I'm more concerned with what God is doing and what he chooses. Who cares what I think if what's fair and not fair? But to finish what Chris, what you had talked about, uh, yeah, God allowed free will to choose. It's not his fault that you choose not to choose him. That's your fault.
And by choosing him, what does
And
that mean?
and
Good?
uh, does that mean good? What I mean by that is that means that um, accept Jesus into your life, accept that he is the Alpha and the Omega.
But in the Old
And
Testament, no such thing. So what does that mean to choose him back then?
well, I'm not necessarily going there yet. I'm happy to
No.
go there, but uh, to answer your first question, so what does that mean to choose him? Yeah, believe that Jesus is the Son of God, repent, and to follow him, have a personal relationship with him. That's the choice. It's not go to seminary. It's not read the entire Bible. It's not do no sin. It's those
Mm.
two things. I mean, so simple. I
So
don't know, like that's not impossible.
it's
Like
essentially
anybody has that
rewiring.
choice.
So it's essentially reorienting your thoughts towards this framework, which teaches you to love your neighbor as yourself. Don't look
But
at the
Chris, do you
plank in
see
someone
like
else's eye.
why would God allow that he's also a just God. You know, this isn't a Disneyland. Like there are going to be consequences. Like, he didn't have to create mankind. I believe that he did because he's a relational God and he's so loving that he's allowing you to choose. What kind of
hmm
God would that be that you're forced to do something? Even with your sin, continue
hmm
sinning,
hmm
continue sinning. I just have to believe in him and follow him, and then I'm in the club. I mean, that's a easy pass or fail thing. So to me,
where
I
you and I disagree entirely.
expand on that.
Well, do you want to go another hour? Because that's what it'll take, I
I got
think.
some time.
But this has to do with if there's a God or
I told
not.
you it's gonna be a 2000 part series.
Yeah, no,
Guys,
it should be.
people since the Sumerians have been trying to figure this out. Since before
Dan, I love you,
Jesus
dude.
was even a idea. Like this was the battle between good and evil. First of all, what is that? No one's defined it yet, by the way. What is good and evil? There's a duality. We all know it when we see it, but sometimes, like Chris said, I see it as good, you see it as evil. What
So,
happens then?
so under Joy's context and what you just said, Dan, this is where I take issue to a degree, is you go to heaven if you believe in the Trinity, essentially. But what if you're good all other aspects, right? So you believe in another religion, say you're Hindu, and you're a very good person, you're not evil, you simply do not believe it in the Trinity.
Right.
So you go to
Go
hell.
to hell. I mean, it's
Okay.
simple. Yeah,
But Hindus
I
are
mean,
good
just
people
like
by and
you
large.
can't work your way to heaven. I mean, the Bible is pretty clear
No,
on that.
I absolutely, I understand what it says. This is where
I
I
think
take
that that is going to
some
be
issue.
irritating. I don't think that you're wrong in being annoyed by that.
Well, I'm asking
Uh,
you as an individual, do you see how that's kind of illogical, though?
oh, 100% logical.
No, illogical.
No, I see it as logical because then it just sounds like you have a problem with how the way God set it up. That's fine, but
No, no, I think it's
I don't
illogical.
think just because you're a good person
God
doesn't
isn't
get you into
illogical,
heaven.
Well,
No, I
in
don't
this
think that at
context,
all.
potentially,
Yeah,
in
no, I
my
don't think that at
opinion.
and
all.
that's where we've got some issues.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
just what just because you're a nice guy. I mean, just
no,
because you're a
that's not
nice
what I'm
person
saying.
means,
That's not what I'm saying.
but
The
that's what
Philistines
you're
could
having
not go
an
to
issue
heaven
with.
because they believed in it was all in terms the Philistines believed they got to heaven by good works. And I understand
But
what
that's
you're saying, Joey.
but that's a little bit what you're having an issue with, which
No,
is
I'm not
okay. I'm not
actually.
making fun
No,
of you at
I'm
all.
actually not. That's not what I'm taking issue with.
So,
Yeah,
but
no
you
one's
have an
making
issue
fun of
with a nice
anyone.
person going to hell.
Not
A
what I'm taking
good
issue with
person.
it.
A good
Yeah.
Then what are
person.
you saying? What are you saying?
A good person. Yes. A good person going to hell aside from,
That's exactly what I just said, and you just said no.
Do you
okay.
think hell is for virtuous people to go to?
I think it's simple. People that go to hell don't believe Jesus is the Son of God, and they don't have a personal relationship with him.
Can you be virtuous and
Period.
not do those two things?
If you don't do one of those two things, you go to hell. It's very
I
simple.
know, but can you be virtuous and not do those two things?
Can you be a good person and not do those two things?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's what Chris is saying. There
Right.
are unfortunately very nice people. I mean, potentially Mother Teresa. Let's just say if
This is gonna
Mother
be a great
Teresa,
short that's gonna
yeah,
go
dang
viral.
it.
Mother
Yeah.
Teresa's in
I'm not going
hell.
to say period. I haven't said it yet. If Mother Teresa didn't believe, have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ and invite him into her life and have a personal relationship, yeah, unfortunately she's going to hell. You know, that's
Right, but how?
frustrating because you're so close.
But here's the part
You're
it breaks
so
down for
close.
me. Here's the part that breaks down for me.
Ray Lewis is going, he's done some pretty bad
Right,
stuff.
right.
He's going potentially to heaven. On
Yeah,
the
that's
cross,
crazy. Ray
there were
Lewis like
two other
murdered
thieves.
people.
On the
Yeah,
cross, there was two other thieves,
right,
right?
right,
And on
right.
the last second, he believed in Jesus, invited him to his life, and that guy that did some pretty
Yeah,
messed up stuff on the cross seconds before he was going to die is going to
right.
heaven.
But so we believe the people that believe this framework believe it because of the way they were brought up
No,
or something else. What do they believe it for?
something else. Now, I will say,
Now, what
like
is
I've
that
said,
something else?
what well, it's a choice that they chose to do independently.
Yeah, but
Um,
how do you know to choose it in the first place?
well, through life experience and uh where I differ from you guys is just because where I was born and where I was brought up, it does not dictate my future. I will
But it has
say
a
it has
strong ass influence, more than
I
you
I
probably
I
know.
will say that it has an influence, but it sure as heck does not dictate all the choices that I do as I become a an adult, right? As I become
No,
of age and make my own gosh dang decisions.
no, for sure.
Um,
But it
you
it
know,
must have
but all
pointed
Christians,
you to that
that's what I'm saying.
framework.
All Christians aren't Christians because of what their parents said. I don't believe that at all.
Right, right,
They can have guidance and have it could have helped it influenced a little bit along that path, yes,
right.
but it doesn't go, oh, here, then here. I know so many people that parents were pastors and they're atheists today. I know some pastors that were pastors and don't believe in God today. I
Right.
do know of that. So just because of how you were brought up or the location, I don't think that that means you're going to be a certain way. It does impact it, but I believe in free will. I also believe that God makes a way for everybody, even if you're in Russia or if you're in India or wherever you are, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, um, that God makes a way.
Well,
That's what I believe, and yeah,
all I gotta say, no offense to you for sure, because we're just having dialogue,
please be
but
offended.
no, thank God there is a God, and it's not man's beliefs that are gonna dictate my afterlife faith, because I don't see a world where that is possible. Just because the Bible says to me, it's not enough. And that's
You don't
where
think what is possible,
the framework you explained, if you're a virtuous person, you can go to hell. If you don't believe Jesus,
and why do you think that?
because there's other ways that humans have been following for millennia. And you can't tell me all those people are going to hell just because the Bible says that part. Because the other books say their own things too. And it doesn't mean those are only right also, right? If there was like a Muslim person on your Zoom screen right now, I'd be having the same conversation with him. Like that works for you. That's good. I'm glad there's like this. I think there's like a certain kind of karma in the universe that sees how we act based on this duality and ultimately judges, which is, I believe, is God. And I believe the Christian framework is one way to possibly ensure that you'll get there. But I think there's a lot of frameworks that exist that can get you there too.
I don't know if that's true, but again, I don't know if what Joy's saying is true either.
And,
What do you
and the
think of
bottom line
Jesus?
is nobody knows what's true, is the whole point of
Yeah,
this
that's the
2000 part
problem.
series.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dan, what do you think of Jesus? Do you think he's the son of God? Because it sounds like you don't, which is okay, but that's for I think for that might be important to know for this discussion.
Yeah, I do say my prayers in Jesus' name. So to me, I do think he represents that. It doesn't mean that's the only way. It
Is
doesn't mean
Jesus God?
to me, yes. Because to me, Jesus is he was a real person, but his name is also symbolic for as is above, so is below. And it's a reminder, just like
Yeah, you're
Catholics
right.
use the Hail Mary to remind themselves of Jesus. It's a reminder of the spiritual forces at play. But that's 100% due to my culture and upbringing. Because if I were raised in Pakistan, I would either be Hindu or Muslim. And I would probably find a similar framework for me when I come across this duality, the struggle with duality and free will. So to me, yes, but it doesn't mean that
So,
my counterpart in Pakistan, for him, is the same thing.
okay, and I do want to talk because that's a very important conversation. That second thing that you said about where you're born in your history, I think that's a very important conversation. But before that, so okay, so you said you do pray to Jesus.
Hmm.
You believe that Jesus is God. So then,
Correct.
what besides following Christianity 100%? Hindu or some of the other religions about Jesus, what makes you feel that you should be open to other religions if you believe Jesus is the Son of God?
Because who am I to tell another person how they should live their life and what they should believe in when I don't even know myself? I found something
Okay.
that's
Do you
acceptable
have to
for me.
tell somebody else what to do to believe in? Well, I guess how would believing Jesus is the Son of God and having peace that Christianity is what you believe, how would that be telling somebody else what to do? Or
No, no, but you asked me.
I
You
guess,
asked me what I
okay,
think. I don't think about that person. Like,
okay.
I'm okay with what they do as long as it doesn't infringe on me or my family's freedom and
Other people's
right?
choices, right?
Yeah. That's the
Okay.
part of Christianity that escapes me, and I'm not sure if that was actually in the Bible the way it's interpreted. It's positioned as I mean, that's the brand of that religion is Jesus. Like you are through me, I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning of the end. That's the brand for that religion. But that's a
But
relatively new religion compared to some of the other ones that are still in existence.
I guess what I'm saying is if one believes in Jesus
Hmm.
and Jesus is the Son of God and Jesus
Hmm.
is God,
Yeah.
where else could you go besides Christianity? I don't think in my opinion, I haven't found anything else that
I think
believes
you have to
Jesus is
start
the Son of
going.
God.
I think you have to start going within. If you were
So I'm going to
But
interject here.
nobody else believes Jesus is the Son of God. But go ahead, Chris. I don't have
no,
to harp
but
on this anymore.
they have other thoughts though.
So
They believe Jesus was around, but they do not believe Jesus is the Son of God.
Right.
I
That's why it's the brand for Christianity. But there's other brands. There's other
so
brands explaining the same thing as is above, so is below.
I think I have an answer to this puzzle, and think
Uh-oh.
I can thank Monica and Raul for this answer.
Ooh, are we
So
getting into psychedelics? Because don't get
no,
me
no,
started.
no, no, no. But we had a
Okay.
long conversation, hours,
I saw
Chris.
some shit on that.
We
Oh,
we 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 had a long conversation about this exact thing
Hmm.
on the way back from Arizona for the conference.
Ah, okay. Should have logged
Um,
it.
yeah, right. I was driving, so not possible for me. But anyhow, this is where I take issue with what was it, like 390 is when the Bible was constructed, and they left many parts of the
Right.
Bible out because they feared it would confuse people, right?
Correct.
The unintelligent, and thus they thought very lowly of humans, just like those who are in control now do as
Well, you're
well.
talking the New Testament written
All
because the
of
Old
it,
Testament was
all
written
all of it to a degree,
beforehand.
but certainly the New Testament,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Because Genesis and Exodus were the last two books written of the Old Testament.
right. It was the way the Bible was constructed as well as what was put in it,
Right,
right? They
right.
left many parts out. To my understanding, they left as much out as they put in it, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so this is where I kind of take issue and think that the Bible may not be what you think it is in terms of being precise. And this is where, again, we're going to disagree. Joey and I agree more with Dan. I don't think you can escape culture. It's a point of being brainwashed, and I have many examples of being brainwashed.
Yeah.
And once you've been brainwashed, it's very hard, it's very difficult to escape it. So, what if the Bible in its true form says something? And again, I'm just speculating and I have no idea what it would say with all the books there. But what if it's something that there is reincarnation and you come back until you find Jesus, right? But say an Adolf Hitler goes to hell, right? There is no coming back from that. Because it does say in the Old Testament that there are many sins that you can create that you do not come back from. And to a degree, when you read the Old Testament, at least for me, it does kind of imply a reincarnation to a certain degree. Now, this is before Christ, right? Just because you will perish, eternally perish if you do many of these things, right? I'm just saying it's a possibility. Obviously, I know God says that this is the perfect book and this is my word. But even there, I take a little issue with some of the things that are said there. Like, for example, many times in the Bible, it says that this is still here today. And these things are not here. There's many examples of this in the Bible where it says it's here today, but it's not. So you're to read that and interpret it as though it was there at the time of the writing, right?
Mm.
But it's no longer there now.
Well,
So
I understand. I do agree with you on that. I think religious doctrines were made as guides, and so therefore practitioners of those faiths do not have original thoughts of their own. In the sense of your brainwashing analogy, they do not have original thoughts of their own. It's the dogma of the book. Original thoughts do exist, however. We get them spontaneously all the time. Impulses,
sure,
those are original thoughts. So even if you separate the doctrines of all the religions from thoughts, I think you get a more pure argument. Because ultimately, if you argue with the doctrine, when we're talking about universal principles, you're not having original thoughts of your own. It's just
mm.
the doctrine itself. But there's something above that. There's a layer above that. The doctrine was made like as a container to try to explain and provide a framework for how to live. But there's something meta to that that we all understand. We just don't know how to articulate.
So
So real quick, in the Old Testament, it says that hell is used 31 times. It's
yeah,
the
so
Hebrew
give
Oh,
a
term.
verse. Give a verse. I've never, so I haven't read the entirety of the Old
Hebrew
Testament.
term Sheol, which is
Sheol?
translated as hell. That's used
Sheol.
31 times.
So
Sheol.
then tell me why the Jews don't believe in hell.
I don't know.
He's not
Jews
Well,
don't
Jewish.
believe in Jesus. I don't
I
really care too much about,
yeah, but what
you
I'm
know,
saying, so I don't
who,
believe that's true, just from what I've read, which is a supposedly fairly direct translation of the Bible. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I don't believe
yeah,
that's
it's a
the
Hebrew
case.
word, Sheol. And it actually appears 66 times in the Old Testament. But
Well,
so
it's
one source
still,
says 19 times it's translated as hell. This one says 31 times it's translated as hell. And but I don't know, the Jews don't believe Jesus was Jesus,
Hmm.
who we believe. But
but if you separate religious text from just human thoughts, which is impossible to do because they're so intertwined, you get to concepts that do not necessarily, that apply to all of them.
So I'm sorry. I'm looking at the direct definition of Sheol, and it says dead, which is what my Bible says, Joanne. So it says you cease to
there is
live.
that, and then there is another derived from a word that means hollow. Um Here, if you Google it, here I'll put in the chat.
Chatbot, can you fact check?
There's a meaningless scroll that means
Hold on,
um
this kombucha's coming out, guys. I'll be right back.
the grave, pit, and death, and then it also is translated as hell. And there's two different spots that I've seen that. I'll put in the chat.
Well, I guess the
Um,
what is the direct translation Bible? Is that NV?
uh, both of these had said it was the King James version uses the word troll. Does the original button the grave? But anyways, okay. So what is your argument? So Chris, explain to me. So assuming that the Old Testament doesn't discuss or give evidence of hell, what does that then lead you to believe? Because I guess I don't understand that argument. What you're going with to that?
So I'm just saying that I'm not saying that there's contradictory evidence because in the New Testament it does discuss how the dead will rise, right? So, and I think this, and
Yes,
Dan's gone,
that
but
believes in Jesus.
this answers his question as well, that people of the Old Testament, at least the way I'm deciphering it as I read it, you didn't go to heaven or hell until the end, right? When Jesus makes his second return, then all are judged and sent to heaven or hell, right? Because you rise again or you don't. So maybe you go to hell
Correct.
initially, but you don't go to
No,
heaven from the
I
Old
don't think it says
Testament.
that
You don't go to heaven.
until
Well,
Jesus comes back.
right.
Yeah.
So,
So wouldn't that answer your concern with people in the Old Testament?
no, not necessarily, but
I think it does.
I'm more addressing Dan's question, really, which he stepped away from. But um,
Damn it, Dan. God.
Kombucha had to come out, guys. Look, all religions kind of lead to the same things if you really separate yourself. I know when you're,
I would say no.
I know, but when you're a true faithful believer of a brand, you're not going to consider other religions. You're not going to study other religions. And
Well, I don't think
it
it's
actually
bad
instructs
to
you
look
not
at it.
to do that.
it
I
does.
don't
You,
think it's bad to understand
yeah, but how many do?
what is there, but I don't think that you have to do that. I think, Dan, you're making the argument that Christians are narrow-minded and
Not just
don't.
Christians. I
Okay,
mean, it's
okay.
pretty much every
That's fine.
religion.
Okay, any religion, yeah, is narrow-minded and just stick in their own track. I get that. But I think on the flip side is, well, I mean, if you believe in one way to heaven, right?
Right. Right.
Like kind of that's what I was kind of trying to get out of you. If you believe
Yeah.
in like there's only one way to go with that.
Yeah.
Damn it, Chris.
Chris gotta go.
He's having kombucha too. But I think like I'm aware that none of the other religions believe Jesus is the Son of God.
Right, but
Like
they
none of
have
them. They know that they notate Jesus. I think they most of them notated he's a prophet or something,
right,
but
but
they
that's
don't.
why it's called Christianity. Christ is the core.
Yeah.
But there's other religions where he's not the core, he's just a side character,
Yes.
you know,
Actually,
and
all of them think of him as a side character. Yeah.
well, there's some that don't have characters like Buddhism as an example, but the Buddhism's more about the principles than stories. But myths in general, like from the Greek mythologies to today, I mean, who knows what other religions, if 2000 more years go by, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a religion with millions of believers in AI as a god, and I think they're gonna be able to justify it well, and I think it's going to answer some of their questions for how to live life. It doesn't mean it's the only way. And that's where we have to like talk about specific principles of what it means to be human versus actual religious doctrine. Because I think the religious doctrines all do it. They all talk about what it means to be human, but then they
Well,
have their
I
own
think that
recipe for it.
right, but like Christianity, you can't be surprised. I'm very like maybe it's just simple-minded in
Well,
the sense
maybe
that
that's not a bad
if
thing
you
though.
believe in Christianity, there's only one way to believe.
Right. And maybe that's not a bad thing because
You
why
know?
everyone's busy, like why would they have to research dozens of different religions and schools of thought? And that's why I'm okay with if you find one that works, keep it. But I think when we get into some of these higher level topics, principles such as good and bad, good and evil, free will, and things of that nature, I think all religions prescribe some kind of recipe for interacting with those things. Christians
You're
think
right.
they're special. Islam think they're special. Buddhists think they're special. And that's okay. But doesn't mean everyone else is not right. Also, it's just how you go about living your life, like what it actually means to be human. And I
So
think that transcends religion.
so isn't there two explanations to that though? Either, right, there is one correct religion. That's a possibility.
I think
No.
there is no correct religion.
Well, but no, yes or no. I mean, yes or no is simple, right? There, it
I
could be
think,
yes. There could be one correct religion. No,
I would say no.
there's no
wow.
possibility. Zero.
Zero possibility of one correct religion? I don't know, man. I mean, maybe for the individual. Is it
No.
possible to
No,
have
no, no, no,
one
no, no, no.
for,
No.
No, no, no. That's not what I'm asking. Not the individual. There is
mm,
one correct period religion. Is there that possibility?
if I had gun to my head, I would say no.
Okay. That's fine.
Interesting.
Now to the flip of that, I would ask Joey because see,
Don't
this is
ask
where I
me.
may this is where I may between the two of
Yes,
you.
I'm joking. Yes, I think I
Well,
mean,
no, 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 no. That's not the
oh,
question for you, Joey. I
oh,
already
I'm
know
sorry.
that
He's
answer.
got a different question for you.
Yeah.
You
Joey, why
graded
are
on
you
a
the
Is
way
there
that
curve.
you are?
is there any proof you could be offered, Joey, to make you switch religion?
So that's a great question. I
Yeah.
I would say probably not be, because I mean I yeah I believe Jesus is who he said he is. I guess my faith is that I believe Jesus is who he said he is. And I also believe that Jesus is the only one that came. Well, I also respect the fact that where Christianity is different from everything else is Jesus came to serve, not to be served. Not to get the glory, not to get the fame. He was extremely humble. He would do a miracle and tell people, "Don't tell anybody." Like straight up, he did that.
Right. He's the
And
hero of the Bible.
yeah, well, yeah, and well, no, actually, not necessarily. I think everybody else was the hero, in other religions.
Well, he's everyone's
Um,
hero in the Bible. There's no denying.
but
Jesus is
he's
the
not
hero of the
portrayed
Bible.
as
Precisely
he's
what makes
not
him more of a
marketing.
hero.
Oh, I see what you're getting at. Okay,
He's the
okay, I
hero.
see what you're
I
getting
mean,
at.
every
Yeah, but
religion has a
he's
hero.
trying to not be and
Yeah,
to be
and they all
humble.
have noble virtues too. All the other heroes of the other text too.
And so so again, I'm choosing, yeah, I'm saying why why I'm so confident in Christianity. Um, and again, he's for, the average guy, and then I respect the fact that if you look at the disciples, like we've already talked about, a very extreme portion of them were, you know, kind of the app blue, less than blue collar workers, and so because of that, my faith is in that, and so um, I guess I don't know. You maybe give me an example of
You'd have
something
to
that
have a
you're.
life-changing experience. I don't know. Like, I would reverse that question to me and answer, like, would I ever say Christianity is the religion? I would have to have some life-changing experience where I was 100% convinced. Because at that point, it just boils down to personal story,
But then
personal
why
touch.
pray?
I
Because
pray
see, I'm
because I
I'm I'm
believe in
very much an
the,
all or nothing. So I guess like if
but you
what,
can pray and not be convinced it's Jesus is
but
the only
why?
way.
Well, so
Because
Why
there's a
pray to
higher
Jesus
power.
then?
There's a higher power. And to me, Jesus is that why do I end in Jesus' name? And that's what I was taught.
Okay,
Like
all
so
right.
prayer is a good thing, and then that's how I was taught to end it.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
so and this is why I'm between the two of you. I believe if, and this is where I even kind of question, is there a God at all? I'm more likely to believe just the Bible has been altered. I find it hard to believe that there's a culture. Let me actually start here. Do you trust politicians? Do you trust governments? Because I sure
No.
as hell don't at
UI.
all.
I'm skeptical. Yeah. With either side. Like
Me too.
I think one should be skeptical and to question, and especially today. Yes.
Me too. And
So
that's what we should be about religion as well.
so yeah, and
Yeah.
that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
Any authority, at least in my immediate experience, right, in my lifetime, has been deceptive, out for control, and manipulates, right?
Mhm.
Any faction of power, right? Um, I mean, even, and I know you're not a fan of Catholicism, Joey, but even like the most powerful religious person in the world right now, it falls in there. The Pope right now is very deceptive, manipulative, is not following religious doctrine.
Mhm.
Um, so I just take great issue with any entity of power because I don't think they're out for you and I. I think they're out for themselves.
At any scale, too. You have to
Yeah.
always be questioning.
So, and in that context, I mean, look, just take individuals, right? What they believe now, right? Like, uh, a man can't have a say in abortion because he doesn't have a uterus, right?
Mhm.
Um, but a man can be a woman without a uterus, man. What the hell is that shit, right?
I agree with that. But so what are you getting at, Chris?
My point is people will believe anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So I'm just saying you take the two things, you take a powerful entity and can convince a human of anything, these things can be passed on. Thus, right? I guess
And there's
uh,
powers in numbers. So the more do it, the more it's like you
exactly.
lower your defenses and say, well,
Why
they're
is only
doing
the
it. Why can't I?
why is mainly only the Christian world in the Western world? Why is the rest of the world
founding
something
fathers.
else? Why is the rest of the world something else?
That was even before the
Okay.
founding fathers.
So what are you getting at?
What I'm saying, Joey, is I find it very difficult to believe that a person, and by far I would expect by far more are they indoctrinated in other religions, like we spoke about this last time. In Islam, you're required to kneel and pray 3 times
Yep.
to the Wailing Wall every day, right? Whereas in the Western world, you just see what Christmas stuff for like year round now almost. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I I actually take issue with that because it's become so monetary.
Sure.
But my point is you're way more indoctrinated into a religious belief
Yeah.
in
Can I summarize what I think you're trying to say? Because I think
well,
it's
I'm trying to make a number of points. For
right, I know. But let me break it like this. This is easier. And I'm not equating like a stock to a religion, but in a way it is. You ever like been so bullish on a stock that you become a pumper and you get blind and don't see the flaws? So the new strategy is to poke holes in your own beliefs until you're satisfied with the results. And I think the criticism from Chris is that most religions don't poke holes in their own faith or doctrines, or members of those religions don't do that because they don't need to, because there's num power in
mm,
numbers and they've been brainwashed essentially
it's
into
yes,
believing this.
it's a little deeper than that. It's just a matter of how anybody with authority takes advantage of it.
Yeah.
So
What's the
but what are
expression?
you saying though?
Those with power. Well, I forget the expression. Those with
Power
power.
corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Exactly.
Right.
Um.
So yeah, I would agree that the predominant religion in America is Christianity. Yes, I would agree with that. Okay, and
So I think it's irrational to expect somebody willing without absolute proof to convert to another religion. You, Joey, myself, or
wait, say
somebody
that again.
from for
Say
somebody
that again.
without absolute proof to convert from their brainwashing to something else. So in this country, you've
People
never been.
from other
So
religions convert to Christianity all the time.
and so do Christians to other
Yeah.
Islam.
religions.
Look at Andrew Tate.
So
But it's not that great of a number. And matter of fact, more Christians I think I read recently are converting to Islam than vice versa. But that's besides the point. My point is this. You know nothing of Islam. You know very little of it, and so do I, because I was raised in America. And those raised in other countries actually know more of Jesus than we know of
The school
Muhammad.
systems are better because they.
No, no, it has nothing to do with that. They have Jesus in their Bible.
Oh,
In the Quran,
yeah.
Jesus is there. He's considered the greatest prophet. They go through the miracles that he did and everything else. They just don't believe he's the son of God. So they're exposed to Jesus. We're not exposed to Muhammad here. So the fact that they don't
Yeah.
convert to Christianity at a very high rate is even more alarming in terms of how brainwashed they are. So I
Right.
take issue, how is it that these people go to hell,
And
right?
how is it that Christians are
Yeah,
so
I know.
convinced of their brand, unless they had a personal experience, and live your entire life this way versus without knowing anything about like Islam or another religion? Or I mean, that's my trying to poke holes in the religion. But
So
again, if it works for them, it works for them. So maybe that's why they don't do it. And why bother
Well,
if
I
you
mean, I
found
don't I
something
don't
that works?
necessarily, like we've all talked before, Christianity isn't the only religion that thinks that they're the right one, right?
Yeah.
Have you met a Mormon or an Islam?
And Mormons are
You know,
virtuous people for the most part too.
you're disowned from the family, the
Yeah.
entire family, if you don't if you're not a Mormon anymore. Your family like literally annexes you. Now I'm not saying that I'm just saying that so Christians don't, I don't know if we're, have the Trump card on that, but you have a problem with because of how people are raised, they tend to stick with their religion, and it might be unfair or unjust that just because where you were, you might not become a Christian. So, I mean, I believe that God makes a way for each person to know him, no matter where you live. I do think that if I lived in Iraq, I might have had a harder time to know Jesus, but I would still have known him. I would have still have had an encounter with him and had the option to choose or to not choose. And I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, that's why there are Islamic people that convert to Christianity.
why are
I
there
mean, I'm,
Christians that
I'm
convert to Islam?
Right, which proves my point that how you're brought up and where you are born has nothing to do with your religion.
So those, so what you believe is those Christians just what? They
I
weren't
don't believe they're
Christians.
Christians. Yeah. I mean, the large portion of America says that they're Christians, but I mean, I think as we would all kind of know, maybe they might, you know, they actually don't believe in Christianity.
I mean, it's kind of like
They're
me.
not practicing.
It's kind of like
They're not
me.
practicing. Yeah. Well, and I would say if your foot's in the water, the Bible's clear on that. From what I believe, and from no, not what I believe. That's just what the Bible says, and I believe in the Bible. And so yeah, I mean, I do think I do validate your issue with it that yeah, if you're in a small town and it's all, I do have an issue. Yes, that I can see the issue there that it might be a little unfair, but again, I believe that God makes a way for everybody, no matter where you are, you know, and if I have belief that Jesus performed miracles and he created everything, I think I can have a little bit of confidence that he would make a way for everybody to choose him. I mean, literally created everything, and he can't figure out a way for
Well,
somebody to know him. I mean, come on. Like
fair,
to me, that's
fair,
just
fair enough. And in they're an Abrahamic religion. They essentially believe, for the most part, the same things that Jews do and Christians do in terms of the Old Testament. Where they depart ways is they don't believe that Christ was the Son of God, as the Jews don't either. And they believe Muhammad is the true prophet of what's to come. And they have proof that he's supposedly committed, uh, he's prophesized the future. Again, I've read very minimal on Muhammad, but they believe that he's done a lot of the same acts as Christ, right?
Well, this pod this is why this will never end because it was supposed to be about good and evil. Which by the way, none of
Yeah,
us have defined.
I
Just
know.
putting it out there.
I
Just
mean,
putting it out
I
there.
can
I don't know
define
if I
my
have
point
a
of view.
definition of good and evil, but these
I
are
mean, I
things
could
that
give mine.
transcend religions, in my opinion.
Yeah, which is why I think it's important to start from the beginning, right? Because if we can try to clear that up, I think
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But
I
I
think
will
all
agree.
three believe there's good and evil in the world.
Well, without a doubt. Now,
Yes.
just to be fair, I've been doing is poking holes at Christian belief, but
Right.
I firmly believe if there's a true religion, it is Christianity. And the reason is because you can dismiss Islamic religion, in my opinion. Um, there's a number of reasons why, but A, it was born around 700 BC, well beyond Christianity, as well as they do
You
admit
mean
that
AD?
Christ,
You mean AD?
AD, yeah, sorry, and they do admit that Christ was a real person, did exist. I just take issue with why would people who are brainwashed to believe something, and I don't think you can overcome that without like God directly speaking to you. And
I agree. I think
I just think there's just no way
people need
with
Yeah,
things
we've just
to
talked
zero.
about
Now,
this.
what I'm
people
saying though, Joey, is I just don't think that's possible. That's where I think with
So anybody
the
that's
corruption
converted
of
from
man,
Islam to Jesus, they heard an audible voice from God.
no. But what
Right.
I'm saying to you is the vast majority are not going to convert because they've been brainwashed in such a way. It's just not, it's just realistically not fair to expect them to convert because these people
Well,
did
I
some
think you make
research.
great
They've done
points. We
research that
should do
you
something
haven't,
about it.
they've done research that you haven't done into the Islamic religion or I, right? But these people who converted did,
Well,
right?
and then there's that argument that religion is bad, but spirituality is good. And if you ask true believers of Christianity, they'll say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And I have a personal relationship with Jesus.
So did God create humans in the world?
I
I
believe
like
so.
I like to believe so.
I believe
Okay.
so.
I'm not
So
a, I'm not
Chris,
I'm not
what
100% convinced. I don't have any
what
proof of
other
this.
evidence? Okay, well, what proof was it not God?
None.
So you're getting into the argument of creationalism versus
No, we're talking about God. If there was a God that created everything, this
what's
has
the
to do with it.
what's the proof that there is a God, that there's
What
not.
what proof is it that there was not a God that created, that there was something else but God that created humans and the world and everything there was
Well,
and
there's
has
not
been?
proof in either direction.
Well, a creator, something to be created by someone means you need a creator.
Well, but there's no proof in either direction. The proof that I see in terms of there's a God
No, no, no.
is
Go the
I've
other way. That's fine. Go the other way.
no,
What
no.
proof?
So the only proof, Joy, that exists is what I've seen in terms of what it would take for there to be humans on this planet. And it's like a trillion to one. Like a trillion things have to happen in
Right.
order
But
for there
what?
to be
But
man.
what?
What do you mean, but what?
What do you
Let's
mean,
just
Paul?
play out. If it wasn't God, what was it?
A
Well,
creator.
again, there's a trillion to one. Well, if you want to, you can take what I just said. The things would have to play out in such a way, it's like the odds are a trillion to one that man was created without a creator, right? That the soup from which man supposedly arose,
Primordial soup.
yep,
But someone
was
had to create that soup.
no, not necessarily, right? Um, I
Base
get what you're
elements
saying.
had to come from
So
somewhere.
I've had this argument with atheists, right? I get what you're saying,
Correct.
in which how do you make something from nothing?
It's just nothing is
That's
what they
that
would say.
that's your
And I
argument.
think
I
no,
misunderstood
that's
your
not my
argument.
argument. No, that's not my argument. But what I'm saying is if so sometimes it can help. But this is what I'm getting after with all this.
Hmm.
Sometimes it can help to actual play out the other side. That's why I'm trying. That's why all these questions I'm asking is for that. You know, I think people generally do have a little bit of doubt, and I don't know what Christian that doesn't have a doubt about something.
Sure.
Because there is evil in the world. God, if you're a loving God, why would you allow that? right? There are kids suffering in India. I just heard there's somebody at my church that builds orphanages in India, and there's literally like in one little orphanage, and there's like 150 little kids that have no parent, no, and it's just one little spot, and there's like multiple thousands of these in this one area in India, and it's like, dang, dude, like that's like little kid that are starving, no place to go, like child, like dang, that sucks. Like, it's hard to imagine like why can't we just orchestrate it differently, right?
Hmm.
Um, that hurts my heart. It doesn't make me feel good. And so I think sometimes it's helpful to okay, let's actually play that out. And I think what I've come to terms with is I can't even describe anything else. You said a trillion to one. Um, the whole solar, I can't even describe how somebody could even have a fair argument anything else but God. So I'm just like, dude, that's just like completely gone. I have seen evil personally. I have seen it multiple different times. Um, and I know that I don't have enough faith to think that there is the devil and not God. Okay, so Ching. And then I look around all the other religions, Jesus, I won't say it again, but because of what I said about Jesus, I'm putting my bet on him, and now I'm gonna put my head down and run. And I think that at the final thing that I'm gonna say is, Chris, what you alluded to with like, yeah, it's unfair to, for ki let's do something about it. I mean, like I think that's what we're here for, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons God
Well,
put us on
certainly.
this earth to
It
put
says
the
that in the
hands and the
Bible,
feet.
certainly.
Yeah, hands and
But
feet.
but there's a number of examples where it's unfair, Joey. And some of
Yeah,
those
and
examples there's
that's
nothing you can do
that's
about
just
it.
correct. Yeah, I think it's unfair that I wasn't born in a super rich family.
Well,
That was
no.
unfair.
I
Uh,
actually
you
think that
know,
works against you for being a Christian, honestly. But
It's
well,
just
this is
white
another
privilege. It's just
conversation.
white privilege.
no, it's not
It's white
that.
privilege.
It's not that. Uh, I think I think it works against you because you don't know hard times, right? I think you have to
No,
know
I do agree with
personally.
what you're saying. Yes, I do agree with what you. Well, this is why wealthy families, the money's gone by the third
Third
generation.
Yeah,
generation. Yeah.
It's completely true. I do agree with that. I am actually thankful that I grew up slightly lower middle class. I'm actually very, very thankful for that because it made me think a little bit more about money. Just watching my dad work so hard and
sure.
still like, have some issues with money. I mean, yeah, Tony Robbins would say, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. But I mean, yeah, I'm not disagreeing that stuff
Mm.
isn't fair. If I was God, could I have done something differently? Sure, yeah. I mean, the whole free will thing, and then this whole sex trafficking thing, and people teaching kids to change their gender. That's not mother effing fair. Now I'm forced to go to private school or homeschool my kids to
Yep.
not be brainwashed. I'm pissed off about that.
Even in
Like, why are we,
RSM,
dude? Yeah.
or you have to
I
go to
just heard
the
this
Catholic.
example
Oh, you go to St. Margaret
in
then, or what is it?
RSM. In RSM, to answer your question, I had thought that our schools were, but we're in California. I have one of my friends that live in my neighborhood, second grader. This happened last year. Second grader. I think I might have already told you guys this. The teacher, public school in RSM school district, had her, I think she was in fourth or fifth grade, come to class to second graders and talk to the class about transitioning. The
Wow.
the son was transitioning to a daughter. Second graders without any parent, and this happened
Well,
a year
yeah.
ago.
I mean, that's a
Okay,
different pod, but that's
that
unbelievable.
is. I'm not. I'm kind of pissed off. Like, what? Like, now we have to be so defensive towards the kids now. Like, dang, dude. And maybe we should all have been like this from 100 years ago. But anyways, so yeah,
Well,
I don't want to say that I don't think that everything is set up perfectly. That I don't think that anything is unfair. I don't
how about
actually
we
necessarily agree with that.
how about we end with this question?
Uh-oh.
Or like as a cliffhanger for the next, because we didn't really get into. I mean, it'll come up,
I'm sorry,
simulation theory
guys.
somewhere. What does it mean to be human? Religious doctrines aside, just to be human. It came up, animals are not human. We know that. We're not sure why. I believe they do know good and evil, most of them. What does it mean to actually be human? And these principles within a religious framework are basically the frameworks are answers to those questions. But what does it actually mean to be human?
I don't know if I can describe that outside of my faith.
But it exists outside your faith.
That's where I would say I don't think so.
But you were born not a Christian.
Correct. That doesn't mean that Jesus isn't the Son of God.
Right, but you're human and there's certain things about you that's independent of religion.
I was born into God's kingdom before I became a
That he
believer.
created, that Christianity is the correct religion. I'm on Joey's side on this one. Sorry,
Right,
Dan.
but what does
No,
it
no,
mean
Dan, I
to
know
be a
where you're going
human
at.
though?
So do I, but he's not considering, Joey, he's not considering that God created the earth, he created the suns and the stars and the galaxy and everything else. So regardless if you believe in him or not, he still exists. So you're human under
That's what
God's
I'm saying.
terms.
Correct.
You're human
Yes.
under God's
Yeah, you
terms.
were made in his
Yes.
image, right? And
Yes.
as
Yeah,
is
there you go.
above, so
Yeah.
is below. But
Oh,
what
but okay,
I'm
so
just
Dan,
trying
so
to
what would you do?
unpack,
How would you answer that? Maybe that might help me.
I think someone that was born with a free will, someone that,
But outside of religion,
yeah, free
how
will
would you
exists
just
outside of religion. Free will does not exist because of religion. Religion exists because of free will. Let's get that part right.
I don't think I would say that.
That could be the cliffhanger for the next
Dang, dude.
episode
Yeah.
because that
Okay,
means
I'll let you
that's
keep answering your
innately
question.
to be
Keep
human.
answering. Yeah, I'm sorry. Why don't
It's
you?
very
So you
simple.
said
It's
humans
just
are free will.
understanding a difference between good and evil. I think that happens before religion.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, okay, keep going. Okay.
Does good and evil exist?
I would say no. See, I'm
Good and evil don't
unfortunately
exist.
outside of my faith, no.
So Islam's can't do any good or evil.
No, so that's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm people that don't believe in Jesus can do good and evil. Yes. Okay,
Okay, so
okay.
good
So
and evil exist
yes.
outside of your religion, like I just said.
But it only exists
Ye-
because of the religion.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No,
Exactly.
religion only exists because
It
of
can
our
realist.
ability to do good and evil.
So Joey's saying it can it can exist outside his religion, but it only
Right.
exists because of his religion.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It only exists because of his religion.
Yeah, God created all.
Right. Exactly. Period.
So God
Oh
created,
shoot, I said period again, dang it.
so God created good and evil.
Yes.
So yes, I would elaborate on that, but yes. God allowed into existence evil. Yes.
So good and evil exist,
Yeah.
Yes.
irregardless of religion.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Okay.
Okay,
So
we
Oh, okay.
agree there's a God.
Okay.
We
I'm
agree
sorry.
there's a God.
I answered that too quick. Yes. Can somebody
Yes.
that doesn't believe in Jesus
No,
be
do
no,
good
evil
or
or
forget
evil?
good.
about Jesus
Yes.
right now. We
But
agree
I'm
there's a
trying
God.
to.
We agreed there's a God, right? Like that just
Well,
so
I would
we
leave
agree.
Jesus out of the argument,
Yes, I
Joey,
would leave Jesus
personally,
out.
because Jesus didn't come into existence until 2000 years ago, and evil was around long before that.
Jesus didn't wasn't born
Correct.
until
To
yes.
man and his
Correct.
doctrine until 2000 years ago. So
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
leave that out. I would just say God
Okay.
personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Because if you could answer what are the core elements of being a human, you can sort of get to the purpose of life. Because the purpose of life doesn't
Well,
exist
okay, so then
outside to a
what is the
religious
purpose of life?
person. Like, that's where we're gonna differ. To a religious person, purpose of life is to live as the religion
Yes.
prescribes,
So then
right?
what's the purpose of life if you don't believe in God?
I think it's to find your interactions between good and evil and your free will. I think the purpose of life is the journey itself, not like an end result. That's what I think. It's not an
So
You
objective.
kind of flirted a lot with religion there, but okay.
I don't know if this answers your question or not, but I can answer for myself. And again, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but honestly, I had always believed in Christianity and God at about a 95% rate. I always had some doubts, as Joyce
You
says,
gotta be,
all,
all I ever
all,
ask is 100.
but I don't think you can be 100 in all aspects. I just don't see that that's feasible without like God directly speaking to you. I just don't see how that happens. So I was always at about 95, and actually, I had never truly read the Bible. And now that I'm reading the Bible, my faith is diminishing, right? I don't know why,
You
but
are not the target audience.
it's just the Old Testament is it's just so confusing, right?
You might be the
And
It's
most
harsh.
honest. You
Yeah,
might be
it's
the most
harsh.
honest Christian that ever lived,
so
besides Jesus.
I'm literally more at around a 70% clip that I believe in Christianity. I believe if there is a true religion,
Ooh,
it is Christianity, just from what I know of the others.
wow.
But that's where if I'm only a set, if I believe it to be, if it is the correct, if there is the correct religion, it is the correct religion. But I only believe it at about a 70% clip.
But
Now
can
I'm
you
questioning
answer?
God. Now I'm questioning God too. But I again agree with Joey. I don't see how the universe isn't created without a God.
Right. So let's assume God
So,
exists. What does it mean to be a human to you and Joey without using religion to explain it?
so I
Well,
just
I
want to
would say
finish
you
one.
kind of,
Oh, wait, wait.
yeah.
Can I just finish my thought real quick, Dan? Joey, sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm really just I'm trying to figure it all out so it just clicks for me. And
Good.
like one of my main prayers is I'm here when revelation happens because that's the only way I think I'm going to be at 100%. And
Hey,
I
did you
hope you
hear the
don't have to be
theory?
100. I hope you don't have to be at 100% to get to heaven.
You guys are gonna hate this, but did you hear that theory? And it's actually, we can research it more if you want. Don't ask me too much about it, but Revelation was actually about the end of the Roman Empire. Like,
Oh,
I've read
I
things
haven't heard
similar
that.
to that. I've read things similar to that that at the time the apostles thought they were at the end times, like when
yeah, just a
Jesus.
side quest, side quest. But if
Sure.
we can get separate religion from this, I agree there's a God. We can have that in it. What does it mean to be human? For Chris Auber and then for Joey Finro. You can't
Well,
use Christianity as a framework for your answer.
yeah, I think it's best to answer from a logical perspective, absent religion, any question, and
Right.
then apply it to religion. That's because if you're going to convince somebody, hey, you may want to consider there's a God, because I had this argument with an atheist all the time that we used to employ, Dan.
Oh yeah,
Um,
shout out to Carlos.
yeah. So,
You fired his ass.
no, he was a good guy.
He's
I'm
a good
joking.
guy. He was
I'm
virtuous,
completely
I would say.
joking.
But
You fired.
you have to be able to argue if you're going to convince somebody that there is a God from a perspective there is no God first, right? To bring them to the belief that there is a God.
Yeah,
Um,
Right. But can you
what
please
I was
tell me
doing.
what it means to be a human?
what it means to be a human.
What are
So,
elements of being a human? You are one. I am one. Joey is
well,
one.
you're going to have to
No, I
limit
thought no, I
that.
thought you said purpose.
The
Didn't you talk about
purpose of life
purpose?
is after we establish, like in your mind, what is
Okay, got it.
consists to be a human. These are
Well,
things that transcend religion.
so being a human is a genetic quality, all right? That's
Yeah,
defined
is
by
that
your
where you're going with it?
DNA. I mean, I don't
I
understand your
thought it was more
question.
about purpose, Dan. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, what
purpose.
you have breath. Yeah. Breath and
Well, what makes being a human unique, I guess, and maybe that's a better way
you
to
have
say it.
Oh,
thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, actually, I don't necessarily. You,
Animals have thought. So
No,
what?
no, you're cognizant of your surroundings and yourself and the implications of action. So,
So are animals for the most part.
there's certain things though that's beyond their scope,
Yeah,
right?
animals are not good at abstraction of
Exactly.
exactly what we're doing for 2 hours here.
Right. So a dog, if you grab a treat and tell them to sit, they expect that treat, right? They're salivating even before you
Right,
give it to them.
right.
So there's expectations on action. But in terms of being able to rationalize, even that they do to a minor degree. It's just they're not capable of I guess intellectual thought. We argue by AGI as well, right? So it's similar to that, where computers are not capable of
yeah, but
human
there's some people
thought.
that are in a
It boils
coma that
down
don't have thought.
it boils down to free will and the ability to distinguish between good and evil and navigate through those.
Animals can
That's
do that.
animals do have free will. Animals can, yeah, and I think animals have a soul.
Probably the best way to say you were born of a female woman. That's probably because there's
Right, right,
people
but from
that
like a
are in a
spiritual
coma,
standpoint, like
but
from
you said not to go there.
sure, sure, like existential. No, I didn't. I said to not use
Scientifically
religion
born
as
of
a
a
frame.
female body. born of a female body, because if you go thought and reason, there's people that are in a coma or in whatever that obviously they're still human, but their thoughts might be put on pause for a moment, or
Hmm.
again, you're in the womb, or dang dude, you have been conceived. I actually would go even further back. You've been conceived. And either you're going to be born or you have been born. But to go into your purpose, Dan, which I think where you go, like I would have a hard time sleeping at night. This is just me. I'm a little crazy. If you don't believe in a God, because how did you get here?
Right.
Why
We
are you
believe in a
here?
God.
Da,
But
da, da,
like,
da. No, I know, but I'm just saying
uh,
I can't answer it. I can't answer your purpose without going into to God.
without a religious frame.
Yeah, without going into God. I don't know. But yeah, how can you describe to me why you're here if you're an atheist? And the definition is nothing.
Well,
Okay. I don't have enough
yeah.
faith to believe in nothing. Literally, their argument is nothing. So, I just that would make me that's not good enough for me. I'm sorry. That's just me though.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. I'm just trying to separate concepts
Because
from
because
religion.
because Dan, I don't think your definition of the purpose thing was without religion. You brought up free will, you brought up good and evil. You need to like atheists don't believe in that.
I think they believe in free will.
No, some
Yeah,
argue
okay.
there isn't. No, some argue,
Yeah.
some argue,
Yeah.
like Sam Harris
Hmm.
argues there is not free will,
I like Sam Harris, but I don't
but
agree with
he's an
everything he says.
atheist and he argues there is no free will.
And why does he say that? Like
I don't recall. I
Because
usually
they
because
believe in
ultimately
nothing.
well, I
That's
think
why.
it's ultimately because there's no original thought, maybe. I don't know. I'm not
Well,
sure.
that's a thought to think of that.
Yeah, this stuff gets deep, guys. Like, I don't
But
know. I have a
these are good.
headache.
I would say these are good conversation.
I think
I
so
like
too,
it.
but we need to distill it.
I know. I agree.
What it means
We
to be a
actually should
human.
start further back and
We
then make
can't
our
even
way this way.
answer what
I know.
means to be
see
human.
my question.
Scientifically, I know you have a DNA, a chromosome. There's what is it, 23 chromosomes. Okay. But
Here, we're
like
gonna.
what else? Why are humans in charge of everything and dogs are not?
All right, we're going on 2.5
Consciousness?
hours on this. So,
This
uh,
is part. We should. This is this next week.
let's. Dan and I both have a question for you, Joey.
Oh no.
We do?
Yeah, you've just asked yours, and then mine would be
Oh,
Joey. Do you think it's
but he didn't
possible?
answer mine.
Do you? Yeah, so
I
he's got
thought
to
I
have some
did.
time. He's got to
See,
have
you
some
said you
time to
could have
think about
answered
it.
it.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
the other question I have, which is my biggest hang up on religion at this point, is could the Bible not be necessarily true? I don't mean whether or not God exists or Jesus
I know
exists.
what you're asking. The accuracy.
The accuracy that man's altered it, right? As man screws with everything.
Sure.
Um, do
Yeah.
you think that's possible? I'll leave
I.
it for you to think about because
Oh, okay. Oh, you
my
don't want me to answer it. Okay, got it.
no, my biggest concern though, I'll tell
Joey's like,
you,
thank God.
is there's
No, I'm
literally
happy to answer it.
like 150 versions of the Bible, and many of them kind of are different than another.
Well,
I
Joey's
just
answer is gonna come back to being a one-on-one relationship with Jesus.
me personally, I do not trust man, right, at all.
Do you trust
And
God? This is how I'll answer it. Do you trust
sure,
God?
but I get what you're
Do you
gonna.
trust God?
Do I trust
Yes or
God?
no? No, no, just yeah.
I
So
do.
I'm going
yes
to answer
and
the
so
question
yes
by
and no,
asking.
honestly.
No,
Okay,
I'll
so you
say
do.
yes.
Do
No,
you
no,
trust
yes.
God? Do you
Yes
trust
and no.
God? Do you trust God that if he made the heavens and the earth and you and I,
They would give you a factual book.
do you think that he is intelligent enough to make his word what he wanted it to be? Yes or no?
So I've had that argument in my own self, right?
Sure.
And I don't. So if that were true, I think.
If you have the faith that God has made everything
Hmm.
by words,
Hmm.
and put everything and organized and orchestrated everything.
In the beginning was his word, and his
And
word was God.
do you have do you have yeah, maybe the faith, or do you have could you imagine that he could further his word how he wanted it to be so that it would get to you and I in in a fashion?
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
But
So that's my stance on that.
okay, I understand that. But then my question to that would be again, where parts of the Bible were left out that at the time were written as the word of God, that these were my words, God said and spoke. But
It was
yet they were,
ultimately left
but
up to man.
but they were left out. So yeah, it was left up to man. So yes, I think man has played a role potentially in altering the Bible.
And I would say that is there room that that could exist? Yeah. I do think that that could exist, but I still at the bottom line, I mean, I think God's smart enough to figure that out, you know. And if he's okay with it being altered or these couple books being out, but he still has the salvation piece is still there, then okay.
Do you find
I
it?
to me that's not enough evidence to say like, oh, all this is because I know this
No, but that's not my
how
argument. That's not why I take issue or I'm
well that's
questioning
one of the
personally.
issues. Yeah,
Sure,
yeah, that's one of the issues. But I think just because that there can be, I mean, look at the disciples. They were not like I've said, they weren't necessarily great, but God used them
sure,
literally to further his kingdom.
sure, intentionally so.
And that's why
And
I think it's
and
a good
they made
example.
mistakes. They
It's
made
a good
mistakes throughout.
example.
I
But
mean, they
when
were
all
questioning Jesus the whole time.
but when all the
Hmm.
We don't have
religions
enough money
rhyme,
or food to feed the 5,000. They were complaining. What do we do? Do we have to go over here? I mean, so I guess I have enough confidence and faith that God can literally make this whole thing. The
well,
word
all
is
the
the word
religions
is the
rhyme.
simplest thing for him.
All the
Hmm.
religions rhyme. Flood, virgin birth, resurrection, Trinity, apocalypse, and final judgment. It's not unique to Christianity. And so clearly man has been involved in this from the beginning, making different brands of the same themes.
Potentially.
So,
Potentially.
Chris, what do you
Or
think
just
about what I said?
coincidence.
Yeah, I don't necessarily doubt that. But really, I was bringing that up more in
Oh, okay.
terms of, um, I think that's the answer to like the Islamic problem, personally. I just don't think there's an escape from culture and brainwashing and all of that. I mean, just look at our society today, how the crazy crap they believe. And I don't even see how it's possible you can believe some of this stuff, right? Um, and yet
And
they
like
do.
the indigenous people would say about
Devil.
capitalists or US society,
I
we're
would say that's the
crazy.
devil, baby.
Well, we're crazy to neglect our families and go work, spend more time at work than
Yeah.
we do with our
Yeah.
families. Like,
I have been thinking a lot about that, I have to say, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, it even says that in the Bible too.
right, but what's right or wrong? Like, inherently, there's human attributes and characteristics that we strive for that we recognize as good, and then there's others that we recognize as bad, and then there's tools and degrees of good and evil. And why do all the religions rhyme if they're not man-made? Like how do they all have the same theme?
I don't, I mean, there are some similarities. Yeah.
Isn't that odd, or is it just coincidence? I mean,
Um,
virgin birth, flood,
I haven't, I
apocalypse.
haven't thought too much about that. Um,
We need to, because
um,
then, I mean, it might strengthen your
again, not,
faith.
not another, well, what strengthens my faith is, again, Jesus was or my faith, not face, is
But Chris said
Jesus
the more
was,
Bible he read, the less his faith.
It's really hard to read the Old Testament, I have to tell you, man.
yeah, no, well, I don't think that you're wrong that the Old Testament is pretty harsh. And
Yeah.
it,
Yeah,
and I
no.
would say it might be better to read the New Testament first, uh, it, and then go back to the Old Testament because I mean, it is pretty, uh, especially if you're a new believer, I would highly recommend New Testament first and then go backwards. But I mean, yeah, as you get older and more like pessimistic of stuff and questioning, like really, I mean, yeah, there's a lot that went into Old Testament. I highly agree. And I don't think that I'm not surprised that maybe there's more doubt or more questioning by
You guys have three
going
more
to the
hours? I could totally just
no, I'm sorry. We can pick this up next week. Sorry,
I gotta
guys.
make some calls. I I don't know what I got out of this other than we can't agree on or have a
Well, it's
definition of
more
good, evil.
complicated. It's
Yes.
more complicated.
Three
And
seemingly easy things: good,
right,
evil, and what it means to
free
be a
will.
human being. Free will's, yeah, I think free will
Yeah.
is universal. But yeah,
It's more
who the fuck
complicated, I
am
would
I?
agree.
Yeah, who the fuck am I to know? These are just what I think.
You're Dan Sparrow.
Eh, well, that much I think I know. All right, guys. Like, subscribe, comment, share, and
On that note,
hopefully you didn't get a headache.
Jesus wept.
My favorite verse. Bye bye.
No, mine is, well, a good verse is, may her breasts satisfy you always.
Ah,
Hmm.
what
I think that's I
X-rated
think that's Song of well, it's in the Bible, so
Song of Solomon was like the softcore porn channel for the
uh
Bible. And then Psalm 119 was my punishment in junior high. We had to write that book out. Psalm 119 over and over and over again.
yes, Proverbs 5:19. Yeah, may her breasts satisfy you always at all times.
Ah,
I'm gonna print that out.
take that,
Anyways, guys,
feminists.
yeah,
Bye bye.
gentlemen, good job. I like this.
All right.
These are
Bye
great
bye.
conversations.